Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Hunger Games. Book 1, The Hunger Games. Chapters 4, 5, and 6. In these chapters, Katniss and Peeta arrive in the capital, and they get put on display for the first time. There's a lot of fire. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where dead men called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
There's a lot of fire.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
What are you laughing at me for?
There's a lot of fire.
There is.
With no context. It's just it's a weird thing to say.
Well, thankfully we have the context of an entire novel. So, I think it's all right. So what did you think about our first visit to the Capitol? We haven't seen it too much, but we have met some people.
This is very, this is really, really odd. The description of the Capitol people. One, I just have to say, every time Katniss talks about the weird Capitol accent, I cannot stop laughing. Because it's a very specific accent that she's going, and you can hear it in your head, and it is just she's listening to them, and she's just like, why do they all sound like this? Why are their voices so high? Why are they sound like they're talking through clenched teeth? Why do they end all their sentences with question marks?
Yes, and their jaws don't move when they talk as well, which I thought was a really weird sort of detail.
Yeah, and she makes this comment again about just like no wonder you can't help yourself from mocking the way they sound, because they just sound so ridiculous. And you know what it makes me think of? Obviously it's an exaggeration, but it's similar to what morning news hosts sound like. That's
morning news post
of any morning news, not like a hard hitting news show. Not that those exist anymore, but I'm talking about
commentary.
Trenchant. It's been a minute since we hit one of those. But any kind of Good Morning America, but just the light and fluffy side, not the George Stephanopoulos side, That's kind of like the energy that it feels like. But it's not just, people like Effie, or it's everybody, it sounds like. And that's really, really funny to me. And then we get a description of some of the people that are prepping Katniss to meet her stylist.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's descriptions of their hair being all these wild colors and the various ways that there's makeup displayed on their faces. And, I'm reading, and everything is whatever. And then we meet somebody whose whole body has been dyed green. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I don't know. All of these really wild and outlandish ways these people are adorning themselves. I don't know what to make of it exactly. And Katniss, when she's describing her stylist, who we'll talk about when we get to the chapter, but one of the things she remarks on is how little alteration he seems to have done to his appearance, and also how understated his actual outfit is. So yeah, but just getting an idea of what this culture is like at the Capitol, it is very, very ostentatious. Ostentatious. It's almost cartoonish, and
Definitely.
I just like I don't know what it all means yet, but it's definitely interesting.
I'm a big fan of the body dyeing thing because it's so over the top in terms of like an example
Mm-hmm.
of how much harder than what we're used to people are willing to go in this culture, because doing extreme
Like they're gonna like an extreme
plastic
tattoo,
surgery
or
and stuff,
tattoos.
like,
People who get
sure.
a large percentage of their body covered in tattoos, and you're just like, what? Well, like
Mhm.
that guy that went viral for like tattooing all those scales on his body, and then like forking his tongue. That guy, he did all this, like,
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's kind of like in that vein, but just really stretched.
Yes. Yep. And it's interesting because there's a point at which she's like, what do people do here all day? Because she is always on the mission for food,
Mhm.
and they don't have to worry about that. And she seems to have a sort of idea that like the fact that they don't have to worry about survival leads to a sort of boredom that results in these really extreme body mods.
Mm.
And I think that that's an interesting idea, that maybe it's just something to fucking do when survival isn't the thing. Like outdoing other people in ways that are frankly puzzling to folks who are trying to just survive would, that's not out of the realm of reality as it is now. But yeah, I just like the whole body dying, because
Mhm.
I think that it's very easy for me to picture everybody doing a sort of Joan Rivers, tons of plastic surgery sort of look, and just be like, oh yeah, well, people do that now. And I needed something that was more intense
Mhm.
to sort of be like, oh, right, they have tech that we don't have. And so they're able to take this in directions that are
Right.
really unfamiliar.
Speaking of tech that we don't have, this bathroom situation sounds lit
Listen.
as fuck. This whole thing that she describes in his bathroom, give it to me now.
Listen. There have been like questions posed in various like groups and stuff about like, what fictional technology do you wish was real? And I cite this instant hair dryer detangler every time. That is the dream. Do you guys understand? I mean, I don't even have to wait as long as Rashawn does, but I still have to wait a good 7 or 8 hours for my hair to completely dry if I'm air drying. It's agony. Agony. And it's like fucking heavy in the meantime and looks like shit in the meantime. It is so embarrassing when I catch myself in the mirror when my hair is half dried. I always have a moment of like, oh my God, I have to do something. I have to cut my hair. I have to do something. And then I'll see it when it's completely dried and I'm like, oh, phew.
Isn't
Okay,
that
it was just
funny?
wet.
You have to go through that like gauntlet of making sure you don't do anything drastic while you're waiting for your hair to get back to what you want it to be.
100%.
Like I always come really, really close to just being like, I'm cutting all my hair off.
That's it. I can't anymore. And then 2 hours later, I'm like, oh, cute. Okay. Ugh. Every time though. So yeah, this,
sorry. Move my mic.
What?
I moved my mic and I wasn't sure how bad it sounded. Sorry. I panicked.
But yeah, that's the thing about the Capitol is like, the as much as it's all very egregious and horrible, you can't help but be like, ooh, but I'd like that though.
And I know we got to get into it, but I want to mention that as well, because there kept being moments where I was like getting lulled in to like the coolness, and it was happening with Katniss a little bit too, but mostly with me as a reader. And then Katniss would have to remind me, that these people are like sitting around having coffee and treats with me. Like I'm not going to most likely die in days.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, these people are telling me how beautiful I am and how great my outfit is and, and fawning over me. But they're literally lining up to watch me maybe get murdered. And it's so jarring because I keep like being like, oh, like relaxing. And then getting like, hey, wait, no, that's not what this is. Remember what this is. Yeah.
Because it really feels like she's just on some sort of game show. So you lose track and you're just like, oh, yeah, well, Dancing with the Stars is like that. And then you're like, oh, no, it's murder. It's Murder Games. Oops. Keep losing track of that part. And when I talk about how I feel like the movies sort of miss some of the point, this is the sort of thing I mean where the coolness factor, it feels like they got seduced by. And so they focus so much on some of this type of stuff in a way that I'm just like, yeah, but you're focusing on how cool it is, and because you didn't establish well how people live in the districts beforehand, it doesn't hit as hard, But anyway, I promise, guys, this isn't going to just be a podcast about me yelling about the movies.
Are you sure?
I'm not going to do that.
Are you sure?
I am not going to. I am going to make an effort to make sure that's not what it is. But I won't lie, it's going to be an effort. So okay, let's start off chapter 4. We had ended with our dear our fearless leader Haymitch falling flat on his face, I think, in his own vomit.
Into his own sick, as they used to say.
And so our 2 tributes here are helping him up. And I love that Katniss is just like, I really don't want to deal with this guy. And Peeta offers to handle it instead, which she gratefully accepts. Good looking out there, Peeta. Appreciate you.
Gratefully accepts and then immediately becomes suspicious of.
Okay, let's talk about this. Katniss is not familiar with kindness.
No.
Oh, your girl doesn't get it.
No, she does not. And well, you know what? Let me rephrase that, because she says that it's not that she doesn't get kindness, but she specifically has to be careful because kindness is dangerous for her. And she says kind people have a way of working their way inside me and rooting there. And I can't let him get there, because then how am I going to kill him? Which I love that there's that distinction is made. It's, you know what I mean? Like, because originally reading it, I kind of was like, every time somebody's nice to her, she gets all weird about it. What's her deal? But yeah, she is just so has closed herself off in such a way to like sort of to protect herself and to enable her to do the things she needs to do to take care of her family and be strong and be like the person that her whole family can count on. So she just had to shut a whole side of herself down, put that shit away. And that would make me laugh through these chapters too. Like her instinct to want to connect with Peeta, and then literally being like told to hold his hand and all that jazz later.
It's interesting too, because like she'll go back and forth between like, oh, I can't accept the kindness because of, getting attached. And then there'll be, what does he mean by that? Is he trying to fucking get on his good side? Is that what this is? Like, she's almost thinking that Peeta is perhaps trying to suck up to him.
Yeah, she says he's got a plan. He's figured out a way. He's starting to formulate a strategy for how he wants to play this game. She thinks to herself. I think I'm glad you bring it up too, because when he's being kind to her, she explains, I have to be hard about it because blah, 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 blah. But when he's being kind to other people, she's like, what is that? Yeah. What's going on over there?
Yes.
And I have a question about that, because so before her father died, it sounds like they had a difficult life because of their circumstances and where they lived. but she had a father who appears to have been quite kind and very, very smart and handy and, thrifty and, all around smart, capable type of person. But also, I get, maybe it's just the way that she remembers him, because she doesn't give a lot of very explicit examples, but maybe it's just the fondness for what she recalls him. He is striking me as a kind person.
Agreed.
So you would think that she would know what that looks like.
That's true. Maybe it's just been too long.
Yeah. Maybe.
Or maybe that's why she feels like she has to be on guard extra, because she like.
I think that's why she feels like she has to be on guard extra for herself. But
yeah.
I think I don't know.
I think the context of the games has warped everything about how she sees people at this point.
You know what? That's a fucking fair point. Living under the knowledge that this is a thing that exists in the world, that's always sort of a threat off out the corner of your eye. And then because we know that she's put her name in that jar so many times in order to get extra grain and shit, that for her, it hasn't even been like the corner of her eye. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger every month that she goes in, till it's just like this giant blob hanging over her for whole fucking life. So yeah, she's been living under the threat of this thing that at first is just sort of a small chance and has become an inevitability. But then when it finally does happen, it doesn't even happen the way you think it would. Like, the odds are it should have just been her name plucked out of the fucking jar. And the fact that it's not even her goddamn name that's in there fucking, I don't know how many thousands of times, because she goes like every fucking month or whatever it is. But the fact that it's not even her name that gets plucked, like, you can talk about the odds, but it just...
The odds are not
right.
That's what you're looking
right.
for.
Is that the thing they say? What is it? May the odds be? Is it
ever in your favor?
Ever in your favor? Okay, yeah, no, that is not working out for our girl at all at this juncture.
Not even a little. I say that a lot, I'm realizing. Do you ever hear yourself say a phrase and start to be like, "Oh my God, that's like the fourth time I've said that."
Oh. Yes.
In this recording. Yeah. I have that so much.
Yeah, it's I try not to think about it, and then people in the group will just tell you to your face about it. Yeah. So then you're just like, okay, I thought we were all going to pretend like that wasn't a thing, but I guess we're not.
Oh, there was an episode of Complete Guide where Tim, who is correct about this, suddenly realizes that he says, "Yeah, well, Tom, guess what?" And he says it before a lot of like major statements. And so partway through this one episode, he like starts to hear it, and the fucking difficulties he has from that point trying to not say it, but it's almost like acknowledging it made it harder to not say.
It does.
And he is struggling, and I remember just cackling because I had noticed long ago how he says "guess what" all the time, and was always just sort of like, that's like a thing that kids do, but anyway. so this like you said, she has a moment of just like, well, I'm not going to, become friends with either of them. I'm not going to let myself get sucked in. And then we have another kind of flashback to her figuring out how to forage and like getting familiar with a lot of the stuff that her father had written and drawn in a book, thank God, so that there was something to reference. Yeah. This is the sort of shit where I'm like, this is why people became great artists, because you needed to be, or else people would die if they got this like plant identification wrong.
This has got real like fucking, what the fuck was Sam and Dean's dad's name?
Oh, I do not know.
Oh, you guys, I know you guys listening. I cannot think of his name. I know it's Winchester, but I cannot think of the dad's first name. But it's on some Winchester shit. When you didn't watch it at all, did you?
No, I watched the first season.
So remember
and a half,
when they're looking for their dad and all they have is his little book with like with all like his notes and drawings of demons and things that he's fought and hunted and shit.
I do not remember.
Yeah, it's like all they had to go on, and it was like the whole thing of the very first season when their dad is missing and they're looking for him. But yeah, and so it's just a book filled with like useful fucking shit. And
Mhm.
her dad did the same thing. Left some useful shit, unlike some fathers. Not naming any
The
names.
shade. Okay, so she's like just reflecting about how incredibly grateful she was for the woods and how it saved their lives,
Yeah.
essentially. And she talks about how like difficult it was to go outside into like the woods
Yeah,
for
like
a
going on
while.
the other side of that fucking fence.
Yep.
You know, like she had to build up to that shit. She didn't just, go strolling one day like, oh, I'm the shit and I can just do this. It took some real fucking, building up to that.
Yeah, and she eventually finds these tubers that are named Katniss.
Oh, I like this.
And he had said, as long as you can find yourself, you'll never starve.
Yeah.
And they're basically a lot like potatoes. That night we feasted on fish and Katniss roots until we were all, for the first time in months, full. Slowly, my mother returned to us. She began to clean and cook and preserve some of the food I brought in for winter. People traded us or paid money for her medical remedies. One day, I heard her singing. Prim was thrilled to have her back, but I kept watching, waiting for her to disappear on us again. I didn't trust her, and some small gnarled place inside me hated her for her weakness, for her neglect, for the months she had put us through. Prim forgave her, but I had taken a step back from my mother, put up a wall to protect myself from needing her, and nothing was ever the same between us again. Now I was going to die without that ever being set right. I thought of how I had yelled at her today in the Justice Building. I had told her I loved her too, though, so maybe it would all balance out.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah. That's, when your parent abandons you for like whatever reasons, right? Whether it's out of their control or it's illness or sickness or they actually physically leave you or they die or whatever the deal is. That anger, especially when you lose two parents, right? One dies and then one disappears.
Yeah.
And, you got to be mad at somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has got to fucking take this shit. And it could really go either way. Like a different character may have, hated the father for dying and put all their energy into nursing the mother back to health. It really, and each would have been, I think, compelling ways to tell a story. But this is what's happening with Katniss, and that she has this resentment that her mother failed them in the moment when they needed her the most. I don't know. It just feels really real.
Yeah.
And it's also, it's so heartbreaking because that is also a very normal reaction to the death of your husband, especially if it's the love of your life.
Yeah.
And, and also the mom comes, what was the deal with the mom? She was like from town, was like a druggist daughter, and it kind of, I don't know, like I'm assuming it's all in the same district, but she's sort of like, I guess it's like a step down or two, maybe.
Yeah, basically she's slumming it with the dad.
And now he's fucking gone, and for reasons I don't fully understand, there's no life for her to go back to, for that she had left to be with him. I don't know exactly what the deal is there, whether they're just parents are gone or she's like,
that's my impression.
Yeah. But like her husband dies and she just gets in the bed and doesn't get back out of it. And that's some real shit, y'all. Like honestly, I don't have kids, thank God, but I could see me taken to the bed.
Oh yeah.
After something like that, but when you have children, it's not fair. And in a better world, we wouldn't be so isolated, so you could take to the bed and there would be people around to help support your family through that. But that clearly is not the case in this universe because there's not enough resources for these people as is.
Yeah.
So there's definitely no resources to be helping taking care of somebody else's fucking kids while you're going through a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
And how old is Katniss supposed to be again? Remind me.
Oh,
They tell
God.
us when she how many years she's been coming to the reaping, but I can't remember.
I feel like she's 17.
So she has been carrying her family on her back.
Yeah.
And she's got a fucking right to be angry about it.
Mm-hmm,
She's got a right to be angry about it.
Yeah, it's there's a point later where she's describing a moment where her mother's like, you eat like you'll never see food again, and she says, well, I won't unless I bring it home.
That shut her up.
Shut her up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just throwing that in her face, it's just so deeply understandable to me.
Yeah.
And how she has just not really been able to move past this with her mom. Like, there's like a part of me that kind of goes, why should she have to, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We all understand why she should have to, because that's just going to be better for her, you know. But yeah, no, I 100% get what you mean. Like, when she's first going out into the woods, and one of the first times she's able to kill a rabbit, and she brings a rabbit home for dinner, and it's a big fucking deal to have meat, right?
Yeah.
And her mom is still in the middle of this sickness and this depression, but she gets up long enough to like skin and dress the rabbit so that they can cook it. But then I think she said something like, but as soon as she was done, it was like she was confused again, and then she just went and laid back down, and they had to like take some food to her and make her eat it once it was done, because that's just how out of it her mom was. Yeah. Like, she had just enough to, I don't know if Katniss would have known how to prepare the rabbit or not. Like, she doesn't really say, but it says the mom got up and took care of that part. And I don't know, like, if that was like the last little shred of like maternal reserve she had, you know. And then once she used it, that was it. She was right back in bed. This is really, really sad. This I mean, I know it's, well, you know what, actually it's not so much that it's overly exaggerated, because granted, you know, murder games, even though I don't know if you guys are watching the news, so I don't even know if that's exaggeration anymore, but it's, well, we don't think of people living under these like really dire circumstances, or we think that it's got to be fiction, you know. But no, there are plenty of people all across the world and in this country as well who don't get enough to eat in 2023. You know, where we throw out tons of food, and I mean that literally, like tonnage of food, and people are starving right now, like probably not even a mile from my house, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right. She is reminiscing, as I said. And then we come back to the present, and she's thinking about how, like, if she's going to cry, she better just do it now. Because it's the one time that she's likely going to be able to have enough privacy that there won't be cameras on her immediately after. However, she can't get herself there, which is the worst. Like, you know, I really felt for her there. As somebody who had a real blockage when it came to crying for a while.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I cry. It was when my father died, was when the dam burst, and I was suddenly crying at the drop of a hat. But there was a really long period there where crying did not happen for me. And it was weird because I was in a relationship with a crier. Brendan cried a ton, and I would always just be like, oh God, here he fucking goes again. And now I'm the one that probably is like, oh, she's starting, oh shit. But yeah, so she gets dressed, goes for breakfast, and there's Effie. Hamish is having a cranberry and vodka for his breakfast. And
cranberry juice. Yes, of course.
what?
I could not think of what red juice he was drinking. My brain was fucking spinning out. I could not think of what he was drinking.
That's so funny. What is this madman doing? And it's an interesting moment here because he is like,
wait,
what?
When Effie wakes her up and Katniss is like, what is it like inside that woman's head?
Oh my God. Yes.
I just wanted to mention that. This little girl is shady as fuck.
We all meet people like this, though, like where you just look at somebody and go, like you just live in a very different way than I do. And it's not even wrong. Like I'll think this about people that I admire, you know, like, but it'll just be so starkly obvious for a moment. Oh God, our brains do not do the same thing in these situations.
Right. That's
the worst for me is when somebody is being really kind in a moment that I know I would have been a snarky bitch. And I'm like, ooh, I would have been very mean right here. I'm glad I wasn't the one talking after all.
But that's so funny. I like to think that that's me for you.
Yes. That is definitely. I'll also have it in like fiction where I'll be reading something that somebody said and I'll be like, "Oh, really? And what about your fucking mama?" And then God. The main character will be like, "Wow, that sounds like it was really hard for you, Dylan." And I'm just like, "Oh, God. Oh,
not you going for the mama."
Oh. Well, you know, Dylan knows what he did.
Anyway. But you were saying, yeah, so Hamish is having cranberry and vodka.
Liquid breakfast.
Oh my God. And then this wonderful, like, they keep piling all of this food in front of these kids. And I really appreciated the moment later when Senna at least acknowledges that this is like, you must think we're despicable. And they don't really do anything other than that. Like he doesn't invite a whole conversation about it, but he does at least say it out loud. Because I just don't know how but I'm also dealing with a society that's, you know, busing in kids to fight to the death or whatever is about to happen. So I guess I should stop looking for the logic. But these people are starving, at least in District 12 they are. I don't know what it's like in the other districts yet, there's just all of this excess everywhere when they come from having nothing. Is it gaslighting? It's worse than gaslighting. It's something else. I just don't know what to call it. It is just, I don't know. There's something about it that is really gross.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And there's a whole moment later that I just love where she's getting like worked on by her stylist. And she says something like, "Thank you so much. We don't get a lot of reason to dress up in District 12. And they're all like, "Oh, you sweet baby. Of course you don't." And, you know, Effie being like, "I told everybody how you made it despite the being like brought up in this barbarian land."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Barbarian, y'all are trussing me up to serve me as a piece of entertainment as I die. Like, what are you saying?"
Yeah.
And I just really like the moments of like sort of leaning into the, oh yeah, we have it so hard, to use their guilt, which they clearly like, it's not the kind of guilt I want them to have. It's feeding off of like a type of ego where they're patting themselves on the back for being helpful
Yeah.
to this less fortunate, you know what I mean?
It's got big us energy whenever we go anywhere to help fucking anybody.
Oh my God, it's true.
You know, like those fucking commercials when we go out, we want to save the children, and the way that we speak, the cadence, the way we look earnestly at the camera. Won't you help? Won't you help a child in need? You know, like what? What?
In the arms of the angels.
But yeah, the women, well, I don't know who they are, but the people that are helping get her ready, like the one that's green, and they are like complimenting how good she looks once she's clean and hairless. Like this obsession with making her completely hairless. I mean, it's whatever, but I don't know.
That is some real shit.
But
though.
yeah, and this just, there's a real sort of, how can you have a savior complex while you are prepping to send someone to their death?
Listen.
Like, how are we having both of those experiences at the same time in these heads? Because that's what it is, right? We plucked you up out of squalor to dress you up and send you to your doom. Yay!
And we're going to be like, oh, we've given you such an opportunity.
Congratulations, you won.
Yes, exactly. Ugh,
what a mind fuck.
And, you know, even if you do die, at least you got to have, you know, some lovely days enjoying our food and seeing the capital first, which you would never have gotten to do otherwise. So isn't that kind of better?
Most of the people like you, or most of the people where you come from, never even get to leave. So aren't you lucky? Which is like some shit that people say in real life to people.
Oh,
you know,
yeah, 100%. Yes.
It's And then this fucking Haymitch guy. Can we talk about Haymitch for a second?
Let's talk about Haymitch. Let's do it.
So, you know, he's having his, like you said, his liquid breakfast. And he is supposed to be, we learned, like, important to this whole fucking shebang. Right?
Yes.
He is supposed to be like a mentor and a coach. And any chance that they have for survival is kind of resting with him, you know? And this dude is a whole mess.
Such a mess.
Right? And like, he is in this position because he went through the games. He's from their district and he actually won. So that's like a big fucking deal. But clearly it came at a price.
Yeah.
Because he has no interest in sobriety.
Nope.
And they bring that up. I think it's Katniss who actually tries to get the conversation around breakfast to be like, all right, well, let's talk about the fucking big thing, like why we're here. And he says something real flippant, like, you know, my best advice to you is like, don't die or some bullshit.
Basically, yeah. Stay alive. And then he laughs like he just told the most brilliant joke.
And Peeta, it says this too, it's so funny because it says she exchanges a look with him because she forgot that she's not having anything to do with him anymore. And I really, that made me laugh. And she notices a hardness in his eyes. And Peeta's just like, yeah, that's really fucking funny. And then just smacks the glass out of Haymitch's hands. And it's like, only not to us. And then in a moment that shocked me, Haymitch just clocks him right in his fucking jaw.
Yeah, he does.
Rocks him right out that chair. And I was like, oh, word? Because I don't know. I don't know these people, but I wasn't expecting him to hit him like that. I just wasn't. I don't know what I thought was going to happen. I don't know if I thought it was going to be like Peeta was going to be standing over this sniveling drunk and, you know, or I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but it wasn't this. And I was just like, ouch.
It's like a teacher like smacking a student.
Right?
Like, you're supposed to be the fucking adult here, dude. What are you doing?
Oh my
God.
God.
He's drunk and he obviously depends on his liquor to a degree.
Listen,
that this is a problem if it's taken away.
Drinks out of their hands.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
But
he hits Peeta, and then Katniss responds by pulling her knife out and like jamming it into the table. right by his fucking fingers.
She doesn't respond to him hitting Peeta by doing that. Peeta knocks the drink, and when Haymitch goes to like grab the bottle, I think, or something, or goes to get his glass, that's when to keep him from picking up the glass
to keep
again.
him from getting to the glass. You're right.
Yeah.
He goes to grip the bottle, and she puts it between his hand and the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And Haymitch ends up being kind of impressed.
Yes.
Being like, and says that I actually get a pair of fighters this year, which is, I guess, letting us know that there has just been, according to Haymitch, whose judgment I do not trust 100%. Everybody else hasn't even been worth his time and attention. So it's all become a big joke that he just drinks through because it's not worth it. And I know that, and I think it comes up a little bit later when she's in the Capitol talking to maybe either Senna or the group that's getting her ready. It comes out that because of where they're from, and I think maybe it's a little bit here too, they're just, District 12 is particularly impoverished, I think.
Yes, definitely.
Again, I still don't know a lot about the other districts, though we do find out something, like the numbers, right, are out or expanding. So we find out District 1 is a very popular, almost kind of well-off district, and they make luxury items for the Capitol. So they're like right up, not as good as being in the Capitol itself. They still have to be tributes, but they do well in the games. We learn they're very popular. Yeah. They get lots of sponsors and all that kind of jazz. And then I guess the further out you go, the fucking further out you go. District 12 is the furthest out because that whole District 13 is gone. And these kids that get picked as tribute, it's a sad bunch. They're weak. They're hungry, kind of timid. They don't do well in the games. Nobody expects anything of them. So, yeah, we get a very impressed Haymitch, like, well, what do we got here?
Yeah, there's something about, like, impressing Haymitch that I'm just like, shut up, dude.
I am not impressed with impressing him. I just want to be very clear about that.
So after that little confrontation, there's just a bit of, the first piece of advice I've got is you are going to have stylists and you must not resist anything that they do to you. Just do what they say. And she starts to say, but, and he says, nope, no buts. Don't resist. And we see that advice does seem to pay off pretty well later on. But for now, that feels very weak sauce compared to she's wanting to have a fucking like war council, and go into detail about what our strategy for the actual game is going to be. And she mentions the cornucopia, which we don't find out here what that is. And he's just like one thing at a time, and he doesn't want to do it. And she's like, "Oh my god!"
And then he drops his one piece of advice. Right? He does two things. He tells Peeta not to try to do anything about the bruise because it's going to look cool on TV.
Right.
Which I was just like, what? And he has this whole thing because I guess there's a rule about fighting on the train or fighting with anybody before the game actually starts. And Haymitch is like, well, it's going to look cool because it's going to look like you were in a fight, but also that you didn't get in trouble and you didn't get caught. And then tells him don't resist and then grabs his bottle and leaves.
Yeah, he's not suddenly sober now.
No, he and I feel like he saunters out. It doesn't say that, but I feel like
he's a saunterer.
He absolutely saunters, right?
Yep. That's a sauntering man if I ever heard of one.
I'm glad that you agree.
I was born a sauntering man. That's the last bit with him, and then we have the train pulling into Panem, and she sort of like judges herself for looking excitedly out the window, like she's like, I don't even want to be like giving them the satisfaction of ogling like a fucking hayseed, but guess what? I'm gonna do it. And she sees all of these people who are pointing excitedly and gets sick to her stomach. Just like, you guys know we're about to go fucking kill each other. And you're so excited about it.
Yeah, and she looks around and Peeta is there and he's at the window waving and smiling.
Working that fucking crowd.
And he catches her looking at him. And it's like, you never know who's fucking watching. One of them out there might be rich, which I'm not sure. I didn't know what that really meant. But then it comes up later on. There's a whole thing about getting sponsors, which I don't fully understand how that works either. But it turns out District 12 kids hardly ever get sponsors because, like, why would anybody fucking bother? And also, Haymitch is terrible. But she's looking at Peeta just like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
I mean,
he's playing a game already.
Like,
and she's like, oh God, I got to keep more of an eye on this guy.
And she really starts to spiral for a second. She's like, he was crying at the station. Was that fake? Did he make his father give me the cookies? Is that part of like a scam? Like, she's really fucking.
Yeah, she is up in her head there for a minute. She seems to sort of let go of it, but it seems more like she gets distracted than that she calms down and decides that's not what's happening.
Yeah. I love the way it ends too. She's just like, all the pieces are still fitting together, but he's got a plan coming. I can take it. And then she's like, no, he hasn't accepted his death, which is weird because she doesn't say it here, but it makes it almost like she kind of had, though.
Yeah, right? I thought that as well.
Yeah.
The tone of that sounded like maybe I shouldn't either, but she has a little.
Yeah.
Which we know she did struggle with when her sister told her, like, you could maybe win. And her instinct is to just be like, I'm not.
Yeah.
Come on.
Right.
I'm not going to fucking win this. Like, get out of here.
Almost like I am too mature or I don't have time for like childish fantasies. I have to face the reality of the situation at all times. You know what I mean? That kind of energy. Like a little.
And I don't want to get her hopes up. And yeah. Which, I mean, I get because she's like potentially going to watch Katniss's murder in real time.
Is the other thing too that like my brain keeps. Again, we're still at the very beginning of the story, but when I think it was she's thinking about her family and wondering like if they went home and watched the day's events on the TV, I was like, oh fuck, that's right. This is not just like an arena game. This is going to be broadcast throughout the entire country and through all the districts. Like these people are going to watch their kids, air quotes, play this game. And just hope that they make it. Yep. Understanding that they probably will not. Like, ooh.
Yep.
This is so fucking dark.
It is. It is.
Jesus.
Oh God. I love these moments where you sort of step back and like remember like what all this really means, and it's just, oh God. Oh, I remember when I was editing the last episode and you were like, the way they live in District 12. There's this long pause and then you just go, this is no good.
Another astute observation from Rashawn. You're welcome. But listen,
oh my God.
I don't want to get into a whole thing, but I was watching the news for just a second, and they were showing footage, which I'm assuming it looked kind of like body cam footage, right?
Okay.
Of soldiers in an active area. And because of, whenever you see body cam footage, it looks very similar to like first person games.
Yeah.
And I just had this flash of like, are we all going to just watch TV like this is a fucking video game? Are we going to turn this into a video game? It was just, ugh. Yeah, like, ugh. So, yeah. I mean, this is all like really far-fetched and wild dystopian, blah blah blah, but also not.
But not weirdly. Yeah. It's really, that's the thing that I think on the reread, was most struck by. I had a distance from it when I read it the first time that I don't really have this time. And that is making all of it hit in a way that it didn't, that I wouldn't let it, didn't have the education to understand that it did. Like, there was a lot going on there with, my perception of everything. And it just is so, it feels like detached enough that you can be like, oh yeah, no, this is fiction. But when you really break it down to its components, there, like the overlaps and how close we are in certain ways, you just can't get around it. And, even like the Tesserae thing, thinking about the number of people who have had to forfeit their lives to the military to go to school, and how like completely accepting we are of that as like a culture. Yeah. That if you can't afford to pay for college or get a loan, you sign up to kill people and maybe be killed. And it is considered the logical option and
patriotic.
Patriotic. It's like something to be, and and we act also like, well, it's people respect that, and it's like, yeah, but we also don't take care of those people.
We sure don't.
When they come back, we act like they matter for fucking photo ops, and then it's just, who gives a shit? So yeah, there's so much, and we're barely even into it yet. Like, you just wait. So, okay. This goes to chapter 5 here with her getting her makeover, getting all of her hair waxed off. And then we have, after kind of, meeting these, stylists, I really love that there's a point where she's naked and she's like, I couldn't even feel bashful because they were so unlike actual human beings.
I love this so much.
They were like weird birds looking at me, and I just couldn't like get the sort of anxiety that you would get from a person's gaze.
I love that.
And that is such a wild moment that I also, really enjoy.
Yeah. There's a moment when they're all done too, when I had talked earlier about how they kept saying how pretty she was. But it's a way that they say it. They say, now that we've gotten rid of all of the hair and filth, you're not horrible at all.
Yeah, you look almost like a person, is what he says. So she's kind of, had this idea of what her main stylist is going to be like, because these people are all assistants. And then we meet Cinna.
Yeah.
What do you think of Cinna?
Katniss is just like, well, I'm super surprised how normal he looks. This is he's young. This is his first Hunger Games, I think.
Yes.
He doesn't have any of the alteration that we talked about earlier. The only thing he's really got going on is a little bit of gold eyeliner, which I also wear a little bit of metallic gold eyeliner, so I feel like that's fine.
Hey.
And she thinks that he's attractive, even though she's disgusted with pretty much everything that he stands for in the Capitol and all the people who live there.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes in, and I want to like him.
Right? But he's like part of this.
But he's part of this.
Yes.
And I feel really, really hesitant to give him any credit. I gave him all the credit that I'm willing to give earlier when I mentioned how he comes right out after, and it's just like, you must think we're despicable. But then he doesn't. And, also it's interesting that he specifically asked for District 12.
Right?
So,
because usually this is a punishment district or you've got to like make your bones kind of district.
He asked for it, and it could be one of those, well, I like a challenge
Sure.
I'm going to come in and take the worst one and do something and because it's the worst one, if I even just improve it slightly, it will seem like a big deal, because that's also a very smart strategy. But it's not that I necessarily think that's what he's doing. I'm just saying, that's a way to look at it.
Sure.
But like, there's a small part of me deep down inside that's like, what if he's from District 12? But I don't know about mobility in this world.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Best I can tell, it feels very much like wherever you are born, that is what you, it's like do or die, Bed-Stuy. Like, that's just where you are, right?
Wait, what was that? Do or die, Bed-Stuy?
You never heard that? Bed-Stuy, do or die.
What's Bed-Stuy?
It's a neighborhood in Brooklyn. It's like rap.
Oh.
Like, some people shout out in like hip hop.
No,
I'm old.
I mean, I'm sure there are a bunch of people listening who know what you're talking about. But yeah, not this girl. Sorry.
Any black listeners out there, do your girl a solid.
Chime in on this. Usually I'm pretty good with rap references, but not this time.
That's more of a neighborhood. Well, I know it from rap because I'm not from New York, so yeah, I guess it is really a rap thing. But it's like a rep in your neighborhood kind of slogan that people have,
right?
But so I don't know if it's possible to be from District 12 and then become a stylist. I don't know if there's a pathway for that. It feels like, especially the fact that there's this fence around her district, which was just information that was thrown out there and not really discussed. I feel like,
yeah,
they're fenced into this shit, but the fence tells me that no, there's not a lot of upward mobility in this society. So it's probably a long shot that he is from District 12. So I don't know it. I don't know if it's affection or I don't know. I want to like him, but I can't yet.
I get that. Yeah.
I can't.
And, the fact that he's acknowledging how despicable we must seem to you.
He's also really nice to her too when he comes in the room. And I thought like it was going to, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to say like,
no, it's fine.
The way she had described the stylist, I just thought that it was going to be, and also some of my own biases apparently about stylists. I just pictured a very different thing happening. And he comes in and he's like complimentary to her hairstyle that her mother has done, and
yeah, says she has very clever fingers because she has done this like really classical old fashioned sort of braiding on Katniss's head. Yeah, so and I don't know if you know, but the casting in the movie, do you know who plays Cinna?
I do not.
Lenny Kravitz.
Shut up.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, so now I feel like I have to like him. Does this mean I like Cinna?
I mean, I'm not
if I'm watching a movie and it's Lenny Kravitz, I like this character now.
Well, all right. I mean, I didn't try to influence you in that way, but I like the look of him in the movie because he is just himself. He's just Lenny Kravitz with gold eyeliner, and it's a fucking look. I will say that. He looks good.
Send me a picture when you get a chance. Not now, but yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, right now. So just get ready for it because I'm about to text it to you. But the whole tone of their meeting is just so much more subdued, clearly, than what she was expecting.
Same.
She describes what she was expecting as somebody flamboyant, and he is so not,
I love that she realizes too that he's new because she doesn't recognize him, because she says the stylists are familiar. They've been the same stylist over and over and over. And some of them she's been watching on TV her entire life. So she had an idea, not just of like the type of stylist that she may get, but like specific people. Like, I wonder if I'll get, this guy or that lady or whatever their names are. And she sees him and she's like, I haven't seen him before.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Like the idea of just getting to know the stylists like they're hosts on a reality show.
Mhm.
You know, like they're the Queer Eye guys. Like, ew.
Right.
The idea of being at that point
Imagine
with these people.
Imagine making that your life. Like, who chooses this as a career? I guess for them, it is just a game show.
Yeah.
Oh, wowzers.
All right, I'm pulling over. This is a picture of him, a still. Obviously there's a lot of spoilers in a lot of the images, so I had to pick something sort of innocuous. But I feel like it gives the vibe overall.
Let me check this out.
He is just so pretty. My personal bias factoring in there as well.
Yeah, he's so handsome.
Mm-hmm. Is he still with Lisa Bonet? Was he with her?
Oh, that's they were married ages ago, and that's who Zoe Kravitz's dad is. But she's been with Jason, what's his face, for a long time now.
Oh, right. She got God, Jesus Christ, woman. She really knows how to pick them.
Yeah, she does.
Woo.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, she does. And the way they love her.
So, yeah, he tells her that, I don't want to skip over to the reason that he says how you must despise us is he is watching her looking at this meal that they are about to consume.
All he has to do is press a button and it just shows up. This bitch got to hide in the trees for hours. It's dinner. And this motherfucker pushes a button and it just comes up out of the table. I would be disgusted.
That's exactly it. She's looking at all the components and trying to think, like, what would I even be able to use to try and replicate some of this recipe? And it would take her days of work, and it would be a really like janky, like half-ass sort of thing.
She describes their dinner, and you guys that listen, especially long-time listeners, will know I don't know shit about food, really. I am just not that food person. That's why we have a Natasha.
Hey.
If I'm not mistaken, she describes what I think is rice and doesn't even know that it's rice because they do not have that shit where she is from. Nope. They don't even have rice. She says something laid on a bed of pearly white grain. And I was like, bitch, does she mean rice?
They don't have that there.
Because what they have, the kind of grain that they have, it turns into, what does she call it? Like a brown mush or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cooks down to an unattractive brown mush.
In my imagination, they get all of the husks that are removed to make brown rice into white rice.
Oh my God.
That's what they get, is like the chaff that's supposed to like be blown away.
That checks out though. And it costs putting her name in the jar for that bullshit. Good day in the morning.
Wow, never heard that one. I pick good day in the morning.
The extremes that people will go to not curse make some of the funniest expressions, and I personally think they're really, really silly and they make me laugh. So that's why I love them so much.
So then he starts talking about what they're going to do for their big moment where everybody comes out in fucking chariots and like rides around the city in the arena.
They're going to just lean right into the fucking whole carnage of it, right? The whole Roman fucking Greek or whoever. They just
I guess that is what's happening, huh?
Into it. Like, just going to let the lions come out and eat people. Like, they just...
God. I didn't really think about it that way.
Shame in their game whatsoever. They're like telling you what this is.
And what they have done in the past is apparently like, because you're supposed to represent what a district's production tends to be. What they've done in the past is like dress up the District 12 tributes as coal miners. Oh my God. Or one time they were totally naked and just like sprinkled with coal dust. And he's over here talking about how, like, well, we need to do something that's unforgettable that'll really make an impression. And she's like, oh, this bitch is definitely sending us out butt ass naked. Like, I can feel it already. And then he's like, how do you feel about fire? And we jump ahead, and she is being told it's synthetic fire. You'll be fine. It's totally safe. She is not buying that. Neither is Peeta. He's extremely tense, actually. And they are talking about helping one another out by ripping off their capes, which are going to be set alight.
Their capes and their fucking headdresses.
Yes.
Which I was like, okay, the cape, okay. All right, that's okay. The headdress, I beg your fucking pardon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does feel like a bridge too far.
Right, like, you know.
Yeah.
But to their credit, they do not resist. She does not resist,
No.
and either does Peeta, from what I can tell. Like, they just fucking roll with all of this. And they set these kids on fire, y'all. And put them in a chariot, and the crowd goes absolutely apeshit. And
I really want to mention that when Cinna lights him up, there's a moment of him going, oh, good, it worked.
Listen.
And I was like, sir, can you just not say that part in front of them? Like, they don't need to hear that there was maybe a possibility this shit did not work correctly. Listen. Like, just keep that shit to yourself,
At one point, one of them is like, I wonder where Haymitch is. And Katniss is like, with all that alcohol, it's probably better that he's not nowhere near us.
Open flames, danger. Oh my god, that was a good bit. Yeah, so they, like you said, the crowd is eating this up, and Katniss is kind of startled at how swept up in it all she becomes for a minute, and really works the crowd along with Peeta.
Yeah.
And the last thing that Cinna says before they head out is for them to hold hands, which later on, when they're talking about everything with Haymitch, he describes that choice as being rebellious.
Yeah.
Because it's like refusing to play into the, oh, we must be enemies now kind of, you know.
Which is apparently what everybody else is doing. And Katniss doesn't mention it at the time that it's happening, but then when they bring it up, she's just like, oh, yeah, that's right. Every time I've watched it, they're always like, you know, we're enemies. We're in the chariot together, but, you know, we're enemies. I love she's like blowing kisses and shit at the crowd.
Yes.
After she had all that shit to think about Peeta just waving at people from the train window.
Yes, I really enjoy that. And there's a point where somebody like throws a rose at her and she like catches it and then blows a kiss to them. And eventually the crowd begins to chant their names, which is like kind of a big deal because evidently bothering to learn the tributes' names right out of the gate is not something the audience is particularly known for.
And there's a thing too, when he's getting them dressed, Cinna opts to go with like very little makeup, clean faces, hair pulled back, because he says, I want them to remember you, I want them to recognize you, and if I have you all done up, then when the games actually start, no one's gonna know which one is you. I want them to know. And she's just like, yeah, okay, that worked. That fucking worked.
There's something very satisfying about this for me in terms of like, you know, I love showmanship. I love the concept of like a display in a costume of this nature. And the optics of it all with like trying to make it into a moment that people remember and why they need to remember the way they do. It's so social media, you know, in a way that is very recognizable today, in a way that it's always been a thing. As long as there's been any sort of performance, there has been this aspect of it. But because of social media, it takes on a different like aspect for me. You know what I mean? Like just always having to manage your image.
Mm-hmm.
And especially depending on the finances of the people observing you. That part is the part that gets me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like this book came out in 2008.
Oh, why did I think it was older than that?
So it's, you know, social media was certainly a thing, but I don't feel like it had taken on the life it has currently.
No, not by 2000. I mean, we were well on our way. Our way, but it wasn't what it became, and definitely not what it is now. I don't even know if there was Instagram yet.
I don't know.
I mean, Facebook was a thing, but it was still, you know, I don't really know anybody that was on Facebook more older than like 2008. I think I joined 2009. It was early.
Yeah. So this just kind of, I don't know, it speaks to me, the idea of like having to navigate this and strategize, and the sort of distasteful nature of it, but also the reality of it. You know, you've got to play the fucking game.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about that is really disturbing.
I think the thing what's upsetting about the realization is that that you can't opt out.
Yes.
You know, as much as we want to, and even when we try, like there are, like, depending on, you know, like to your point, like if you want to, sometimes you just have to do the thing.
Yeah.
Even when you hate the thing. And you have to play the game, and knowing that you don't really have a choice, because we have like an illusion all the time of choice. And when we have moments where we get confronted with our actual lack of it, or that we don't have as much as we tell ourselves we do, it's deeply upsetting. You know.
Yeah, I remember when I first started off as a Patreon ambassador, we were having a meeting and people were sharing difficulties they were having with their development of their platforms and whatnot. And he was asking us like what we needed help with specifically. And there was a creator, a woman, who said, I am trying to figure out how to engage with fans in a way that I do not have to actually share any of my private life, where I can just play my character at all times. But nobody wants that. They want the personal aspect. They want to become part of my actual world. And that's what they're paying to become a patron for, is to be able to participate in that. How do I manage a career without having to give up my real life and make it part of my brand? And he basically was like, sorry about it.
Wow.
That was kind of the answer she got, was just like, he really didn't even know what to do with the question, because it's taken so for granted that if you are a creator, you are putting yourself out there as much as your product, you know? And I remember thinking how glad I was that that's not a hang up that I have, because it would be really, really tough to do my job.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you are a really private person, like there's nothing wrong with that, but good luck.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I still have a lot of hang-ups about it. I mean, it's been several years now, so like a lot of the cats are out of the bag at this point. But to this day, I will still have like a twinge when I'll be like, God, people know my first and last name. I don't like it. Like sometimes a postcard will have like my first and last name on it, and I'll be like, ugh, I don't like it. But I'm in the Facebook group with my fucking first and last name, you know? Like, I wasn't one of those people smart enough to use a fake name when I got on Facebook. I don't know what I was thinking. I should have done that.
It is kind of wild that you didn't, because if any of my friends I was going to point at and be like, they're the one that would use a fake name.
I tried. Me and Steven both tried. And then we nobody would accept our friend requests.
Everybody else fucking ruined it for you.
Yeah, I told you the story about my fucking email, my Yahoo email.
No.
This is a fake name when I got my Yahoo account in like whatever 2000, I guess it was. I got and it asked, you for your first and last name, and I used a fake name. Because of course I did.
Yep.
And then kept it for I had that email for the longest fucking time. But I very rarely used it for anything important because it was still the early 2000s and you didn't use your email for like jobs and shit just quite yet. You were still like giving people resumes and shit, And then when we were getting ready to move to Philly, back to Philly, and Amy was like, I'll help you with your resume, or blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Da, da, da. She was like, well, send me an email. And I sent her an email from my John. And we hadn't even met Amy in person yet. Amy is my husband's business partner. And she emailed me back. And she was like, girl, you cannot use this email if you're going to be applying for jobs. Who the fuck is Joan Smith? And I was like...
Oh my God.
I was like, because that wasn't the name of the email. Like my email was my email. But I had forgotten that it will... like plug in your real name, at the bottom of your email if you don't turn that off, like your signature line.
Mm-hmm.
Girl, yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. I would not have used that email address for a job at that time. I knew better. But I had forgotten that when I set the email up 10 years ago that I had used a fake name.
That's funny. I can understand that though. I mean, that's a long ass time ago.
So yeah, it's the idea of being able to exist publicly but not have everything be public. I get that desire.
Mm-hmm,
but I agree with you. The way we have been socialized to what we've been socialized to expect from content creators of all levels is just, it's changed. It's not what it used to be. And we've always been insatiable about knowing about our people, our entertainers. We've always wanted to know,
Yes.
There used to be a little bit more of a higher fence between us and them.
Oh God, huger. Yeah.
But we've always been clamoring on the other side of the fence.
Mm-hmm. So this goes really well. I love that when it's over, they're getting dirty looks from all of the other tributes.
I love that she's holding his hand so tight and she feels bad and she tries to let go and he's like, wait, no, I'm gonna fall.
Yes. Yeah. She's thinking to herself, like, let me hang on to him because he's like as steady as a rock. But then attempts to disentangle herself and he's like, don't you fucking dare. And then we get this moment. Thanks for keeping hold of me. I was getting a little shaky there, says Peeta. It didn't show, I tell him. I'm sure no one noticed. I'm sure they didn't notice anything but you. You should wear flames more often. They suit you. And then he gives me a smile that seems so genuinely sweet, with just the right touch of shyness that unexpected warmth rushes through me. A warning bell goes off in my head. Don't be so stupid. Peeta is planning how to kill you, I remind myself. He is luring you in to make you easy prey. The more likable he is, the more deadly he is. But because two can play at this game, I stand on tiptoe and kiss his cheek, right on his boobs. And that's the end of chapter 5.
Really quickly, I have to say, there was this moment, I was like, ooh, this has got Cersei energy. What is she doing?
Oh, God. Oh, no.
Just the quick turnaround in her head. That's all. Just that really quick, like, oh, that warmth rushes through me. Then, don't be so stupid. He's planning to kill you. He's luring you into making you easier. I was like, oh shit, here we go.
And what's so frustrating is, like, I want to be like, girl, come on. But there's one man left standing,
girl,
in the games. Like, that's how this goes.
I have absolutely no idea if if what she suspects about him is true right now in this moment, I have no difficulty imagining that it will be true sooner than later, because exactly what you just said. Only one of these motherfuckers gets to win, right?
Yep.
It is to the death. Like, so yeah, so even if right in this second he really does mean it, she's right to remind herself, one of us, we can't both live under the rules that they have set out.
Yes.
You know, now if it's possible to change the rules, that would be fucking great, and I hope that's where the book is going, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So yeah, it's she has to think these things, but it's how quickly they come, and the uncomfortableness of them when they come. That as a reader, when you're reading it, you're just like, you don't want her to be right. You want her to be crazy and being irrational, because if this is rational, then that is a testament to how just incredibly fucked this all is.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So then we go to chapter 6, and they're at the training center. And she gets to ride in an elevator for the first time.
Oh my God,
is really
this
just
horrifying.
This is crazy. Rashawn doesn't like heights, for those who don't understand why she's reacting this way.
You can see through this shit. I don't like those glass elevators. You see them in some hotels. And some malls have them. We had one in the mall across the street from my high school. This glass elevator situation, and it was only like 3 floors. This thing she's talking about and how fast? No.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
Yeah, she describes it as like shooting upward, which I don't need that kind of verbiage with my elevators. Thank you.
I don't need that in my life, period. She likes it so much she wants to ride again, like she's at fucking Disney World.
Yes. So Effie is talking about all of the things that she's like been doing to try and get them sponsors, or at least get people interested. Like, apparently it's Hamish that has to handle sponsors, but she's trying to lay the groundwork a little bit, and she is such a goof.
She says coal under pressure turns into pearls, and for a split second I was like, word? Is that what they do?
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, you didn't. Sure didn't know that. Nobody knows that. Probably she meant coal turns to diamonds, but that's untrue too. I've heard they have some sort of machine in District 1 that can turn graphite into diamonds, but we don't mine graphite in District 12. That was part of District 13's job until they were destroyed. So this whole thing, she's just patting herself on the back, trying to help them, feeling very excited about the fact that they have made such a splash with their intro, because this district is a loser district. Yeah. So she's finally starting to get something for all of her trouble as she sees it. And they go and eat, and there is this moment here. So Hamish shows up, actually eats for the first time. She's never seen him eat before, and it's just kind of like, wow, I don't think I realized that, but I haven't. They
have these servers, and I don't know if they just haven't been mentioned before. I'm assuming they've been served at every meal, or no, maybe not, because they ate on the train, and then she eats with Senna.
Yeah. Well, it's been automated most of the time.
Okay, so this might be the first time they've got the servers. And they're all silent, and they're dressed in white, which I was just like, well, you know, it's not uncommon for servers to like be quiet. That makes it good. You know, they're not supposed to interfere with the conversation, and dressed in white seems like it's fine too. So when we get a reveal about what that is, I didn't see any of that coming.
Yeah. So you wanna tell us about it?
I mean, they're just probably not, because I can't forget what they're called. They're called Avoxes or something, and they are traitors, and their punishment is that they get their tongues torn out, taken out, whatever, and then they're just relegated to these sort of lives of servitude, best I can tell. Yeah, and we get this information because fucking Katniss sees a woman in the room and is just like, oh shit, you look familiar. And everybody at the table is just like,
yeah.
Like, first of all, you're not even supposed to fucking talk to these people unless you're giving them a direct order. And then how would you know someone like this? Like, you better fucking not know them. And then Peter does this thing where he kind of comes to her rescue and it's just like, yeah. She looks just like that chick at our school. I see it too. Just kind of help her cover. Turns out that is not what happened, though.
No, it is not.
Something entirely different happened. And this was, I don't know what this is exactly, but this was really upsetting.
Yeah.
And also for Katniss, who still feels incredibly guilty about this. Her and who is it? Is it
Gale?
Is it Gale that she's out with?
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny though, because it takes a bit for us to get this story because Peeta wants to know, but she can't say anything over this dinner. And then they do the fake story about this girl looking like a girl they went to school with, Deli, and then they afterwards, then they're dismissed. Her and Peter are heading back to their rooms, and he ends up taking her up to the roof because you can barely hear up there. There's a lot of wind.
Yeah, that's the way he phrases it. Is like, have you been up there? The wind can be a little loud though. And she's like, oh, okay, like tapping the side of her nose. Now, I got you, buddy.
I didn't think she was going to tell him. And she has, it seems like there's like a hesitation. She doesn't know if she's going to tell him either. And with her whole, like, I got to be really careful with him and can I trust him and all that jazz. But then she ends up saying to herself, how can it hurt really? Even if he tells anybody, it couldn't do me much harm. It was just something I witnessed. And she's like, and he lied to everybody about Deli Cartwright, so he's kind of implicated too.
Yeah.
But then really what's happening is the next line, which is, I realize I do want to talk to someone about the girl, someone who might be able to help me figure out her story. And Gale is not available, so I guess it'll have to be Peeta.
Yes. Yeah, so she had been out with Gale, and they have this moment in the woods where all of a sudden the birds stop singing. And it's just, kind of strange. And then all of a sudden they see this girl, and the moment they see her, almost the same moment, a hovercraft appears from like out of nowhere. And it drops a net, scoops her up, uses a some kind of like spear or like a javelin, and goes through the kid like he's a fucking
like they shot him like he's a
dolphin.
Fucking whale, right? One of those like harpoon jaws.
And they just drag him onto the ship, and she hears the girl cry out and assumes that it's her, like calling her friend's name, and that's the last she heard of her. And no idea like where it was she was heading to. She said they had the look of capital people, but like otherwise no idea. And she is really cut up over the fact that they did nothing and just watched it happen. That
look when the girl looks her dead in her face, and she's haunted by this. And she wants to apologize to the girl, but the best she can do is like apologize for like making a mess, I think. I love this bit too. After she tells the story and Peeta asks a question, he says something, and it ends up being like a little too loud.
Yeah, he says something like, "I'd leave here, even though the food's really good, but I'd definitely go home if they gave me the chance." She's just like, "Oh boy, good save."
And she's just like, again, he's very, very good on his feet, isn't he, with the lies? Very good.
There's something that I have a theory about with this, and I could be reaching.
Okay.
But, the difficulties that each of them faced in their childhoods were really, really different, with her having to need to like take care of her family to survive
Mhm.
and feeling like failed by a parent who's supposed to be watching out for them. But she did have parents that she knew loved her for a time and was not being physically abused.
Mm.
And her, you know, her way of coping has been to just take control of the situation and be the adult and handle things.
Right.
And the fact that Peeta's a really good liar, that's a talent you develop
When you don't want to
are
get
having to
smacked
walk
in
on
the face,
eggshells
so-
around somebody.
Mhm.
Yeah. You have got to learn how to handle a person that you know is volatile, that you never are really sure exactly what might set them off, and you get very glib and you are super sensitive to the vibe in a room and
Yep.
get like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I really feel like the smoothness of the way he handles things and covers, especially if he has brothers,
Mm.
he's probably out here looking out for them, covering up when they fuck up and trying to like diffuse the situation a lot. Like it just,
I think
this
you're
for
right.
me is a different kind of coping mechanism,
Yeah.
and it just manifests this particular way that works really well for like PR purposes.
That
you know,
absolutely tracks. I mean, yeah. And you learn how to, when you're in a situation like that, not only read so that you can walk on eggshells, but also that you can perform what the other people need of you in that moment to avoid, you know, their wrath. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. He also tells her here about his dad and that his father knew her mother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
she feels really weird because her mom has never mentioned his dad to her
right?
ever.
Nothing more than like the cakes and cookies are good and the bread's
Yeah.
good. And he says something. He says he's talking to her about Gail. He wants to know like a little bit about what's going on with all that.
Mm-hmm.
And he asks like if they're related to, you know, he says that they look alike, which I didn't really know what to do with that. She says something like she had said in an earlier chapter, I think, that like everybody in District 12 kind of looks the same.
Yeah, her mother's a real outlier with being
Yeah.
blonde and everything.
And he says that his father really likes both Katniss and her sister. And
Mm-hmm.
Peeta thinks that he wishes he had a daughter instead of a house full of boys.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's anything to that, y'all. I don't know. I don't know if there's like, I don't know. But I just was like, oh, interesting. Interesting. He knew your mother when they were kids. He's very fond of both of this woman's children. I don't know.
Or you think that maybe he's her real dad?
No, not that. I mean, at least not both of them. No. Maybe, well, now that you said it. But no. No.
I put it in her head.
There could be a, because, well, we know that the woman that he married doesn't seem great. So there could have been like a childhood romance, maybe just a crush on his part. Or it could have been a lot of nothing, but then he married someone who turned out to be awful, and you create a fantasy, you know, in your mind of someone that you could have had or should have been with. It could be something like that. I'm not really sure. I mean, fuck, for all I know, it could be a fondness that he had for Katniss's father. You know,
ooh, I like that.
You know, like maybe they were cool or whatever the deal was. I mean, she does tell us that her father was very good about knowing what everybody in town valued. So that's how she knows that the mayor really likes the strawberries, and this one likes squirrel, and this one will trade for blah blah blah. You know,
yeah.
But I just wanted to mention that because I was just like, I'm gonna make a little mental note. I'll promptly forget it, but the mental note will be there, and eventually it will pop back up.
The mental notes are stacking.
But they're only sticky notes, so then the slightest breeze,
Oh
and
no!
then they flutter off.
So yeah, there's this whole thing with the Avox. It's like the way that this guilt is weighing on her. It's really interesting because, like, you know, to me, I'm thinking literally, what could you have done? You know, there was a fucking hovercraft and you had a bow and arrow. Like, come on. But I do like there being a moment of Katniss realizing that sometimes you just stand and watch. Like, even she has done that. As much as she's condemning everybody in the districts or in the capital, it isn't something she's entirely innocent of either. And I am not trying to compare her situation to what they're doing with the games, but it's just interesting how seriously she takes it when she remembers and feels this sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
And
she's physically shaking through since this has happened. Like, at one point, Peeta like puts a coat around her or something as they're heading out to the roof, and she's shivering as she climbs into the bed. Yeah.
And the chapter ends with, I wonder if she'll enjoy watching me die.
Jesus Christ, you guys.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. What have you got me reading?
It's good though, right?
It's really good. Yeah.
So, all right. That is the end of the chapter.
Yay.
I'm going to start saying hi to new patrons next week. We've had to start a little late tonight because Rashawn and I had some technical issues. What the fuck else is new? But I just want to say hi to everybody who's listening. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. If you're interested in just keeping up with what we're doing, go to patreon.com/unspoiled and you can follow us and become like a member for free. And there I'm trying to like post all of the big announcements and reminders about lives that are about to start on my Patreon as posts available to everybody who's following us for free as well. And that way you don't have to rely on the algorithms in social media to hope that you'll see whatever update it is that I'm trying to share. Because I know that like a lot of people had relied very heavily on email marketing for a while, but I find that difficult to do. And also I delete so much shit without even reading it. So I thought the Patreon that you opt into in that way would probably be easier to sift through. So yeah, if you're enjoying stuff, if you just want to be able to keep abreast of whatever projects we're working on, patreon.com/unspoiled. And of course you can also become a paying patron and get access to the Sookie Stackhouse coverage that I'm doing with Miles. And Rashawn and I are, of course, still at it with the Unsobers. So tomorrow we're going to be recording on autumn magic. And I wish I could add a little like sting of chimes playing here, like I'm waving a wand and leaving sparkles behind. But
I have no idea what we're even talking about. Autumn magic. I can't wait to find out what it is.
This is how it goes. Just for those who are wondering, I just like decide on a topic, and usually it's a surprise to Rashawn what it even really is. Sometimes she'll get in touch with me and be like, no. we are not doing that. It's only happened a couple times, but it's happened. But yeah, mostly I just decide like this sounds like a fun thing to talk about, and I just pick a thing. So that's what's going on with the higher tier. And of course, postcards, which I have been behind on. Rashawn's visit and going to see Beyonce really threw me.
But
I have been off my game.
Ways.
Yes.
Threw me in all the best ways.
I'm falling behind on my work, but my self-care has never been better. So I'm not being cute, guys. It's fucking true. But I am, if you're at $10, I send out a monthly postcard. And
I got the trash postcard.
Oh,
I gave it to Steven.
Raccoons.
I was like,
isn't it so good?
I was like, you got to look at this one. You got to look at this one.
I worked so hard on that. But yeah, I'm in the midst of designing the next one, and I'm probably going to send it out. Like, the thing is that it costs money, you know, of course, to order the postcards and then the postage. So I want to do 2 sets of postcards this month to try and like catch up. I don't know that I can afford that this month though.
Yeah.
So it's all sort of, we'll see how I do with, like, you know, sales for the commissions and stuff for Spoil Me. But yeah, that's what's going on in the Patreon world. And also, Patreon updated their app. I know a lot of people don't like it.
A lot of people don't
I'm
like
sorry about it. Change is hard, but what can you do? Most people listen to the patrons only stuff using an RSS feed in their regular podcatcher, which is really the easiest way. And I recommend that. But if you do interact on the Patreon app and you're having a hard time, they're looking for feedback, and especially from ambassadors, which I am one. So if there's like something specific you're having an issue with, shoot me an email, unspoiledpodcast@gmail.com. It's easier to email than it is to message. I really, really don't recommend doing Facebook Messenger in general because it's so finicky. I have such a hard time with that thing. But emails, it's much easier because I can search words and find exactly what I'm looking for in a way that I can't with that messenger, and pull info up easily. So I can send all of that stuff onto Patreon, and they really, really do take feedback into account. They will genuinely make changes in pretty good time if enough people have the same issue. So just encouraging anybody who's irritated, let me know. I can't myself do anything about it, but I can get it to the people who can do something about it. But yeah, that's about it. So thank you all again. We love you very much. And until next week, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say he murdered 3. Strange things that happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where dead men call out for his love to flee? Strange things that happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.